Good day. This is a video to show you how to make a mask that is a full face seal mask with a metal nose strip. We're starting with 4 sheets of flannel. You can use whatever cloth you think is good, but flannel I think has good characteristics for this. The sheets are 4 inches by 7 inches and meant to fit the pattern that you can download in the link below. And a strip of metal that's a 1/2 inch wide and 6 inches long. I used aluminum roof flashing, but you can use a piece that you make out of 2 soda cans by cutting the soda cans into 2 rectangular sheets and then cutting 8 1/2 inch wide strips 6 inches long and laminating those together using packing tape. That makes a workable piece of metal for this project. So we're going to pin the pattern to all 4 sheets at once. Put the pins through all 4 sheets. This will keep everything from creeping while we cut. And we're going to cut around the edge of the pattern, which you will have cut out of the printed sheet, along the solid dark line along the outside. The dotted lines are meant to represent where the stitching goes. It's a pretty simple cut all the way around the edge of the pattern using the same kinds of kindergarten skills we're all using these days. So let's get going on the cut. If you can't cut this fast, it's because you don't have post-editing for life. So we're going to take the pattern off, and then I'd like to mark the stitch line along the front of the mask. Because I'm not an expert seamster, so I need something to follow with the sewing machine. This seam down the front of the mask goes through all 4 layers of cloth, binding them together. This is the only seam that will go through all 4 primary layers. So now we'll run the seam down the front of the mask, being careful not to bind things up. And let's take the pins out. Now we have the body of the mask made. If you separate 2 layers on either side and flip it around, you can see that's the basic shape of the mask. Let's put it back out. Now I notice I've made a mistake here because the next step is to make the sleeve for the metal strip, but I ran that seam all the way to the top, and it's not easy to do when that's all the way to the top, so I need to rip that seam out. So let's use the pattern, and we'll mark the fold line. That is the fold that will go over the strip of metal to create the sleeve for the strip of metal. And that will give me where I need to rip that seam down to, plus mark the fold line, because we'll need that. And here I am marking the correct line after having made a mistake and marked the wrong line. So please ignore the diagonal one. The straight across one is the one we're going to use as the fold line for the strip of metal. Now that we have that in place, I'm going to lock the seam in about a 1/2 inch above the fold line so that I can rip that seam down to that spot about a 1/2 inch above the fold line. And that will get us to the point where I've corrected the mistake that I made by making the seam all the way to the top. Oh, hey, glad you're back. I've got that seam ripped out now, and I'm ready to try and make the sleeve to hold the piece of metal. This is a rather complicated process for me right now because I haven't figured out a simple way to do it, but working effectively one side at a time, but you have to deal with that seam across the bridge of the nose. So we'll pin this in place, and I'm going to mark a line to run the seam, take the piece of metal back out, and try to start the seam. But then we'll see a rather complicated series of events in fast motion here as I attempt to get that sleeve all the way across and done properly. I wish there was a way to do this more easily. I was unable to find it. It's the only thing here you're really going to have to figure out for yourself, but it's not too bad. You really just have to get a sleeve all the way across the bridge of the nose with the metal strip inside. And whatever it takes to get there should be good. All right, now we're going to put a metal strip in here, and we're going to run into a little bit of resistance in the middle where there's a seam in the sleeve. So we're going to just push past that as best we can. A little bit of wiggling, a little bit of puffing of the sleeve does the job. We're going to go into the middle of the 4 layers of the sleeve. Here you can see I'm working it past that middle seam. We'll get there. There it is. All right, now we just have to make sure it's even on both sides. Looks good. So now what's left to do here is to finish the edge by folding it in about 1/4 of an inch and running a seam all the way around the edge. So we'll get that done right now. I'm going to be doing this freehand. It's easier for me than pinning it. It takes a lot less time. Now we're going to trim off the excess of the fold over for the metal sleeve. Made that bigger so that you could use wider strips of metal if you wished without having to change the pattern. Now we got our edge finished and we're all trimmed up. Time to mark the area for both the strap and the Velcro to hold the strap on the other side. So we'll mark the top and the bottom on this side of the mask. And then we'll flip the pattern over, flip the mask over, and we'll mark the appropriate place for the strap. The other side was the Velcro. Hope you're okay with uncomfortable silence. All right, now that that's marked, we're going to take our Velcro. I've got the self-adhesive kind of Velcro here. I'm going to cut a square of the loop side. I'm sorry, a square of the hook side. And I'm just going to stick it on the proper side of the mask. I would sew this on, but I've tried to sew this self-stick Velcro before, and it gums up the needle of the sewing machine and makes a big mess. So now we're going to use a strap. The first we got to do is measure it to about 13.5 inches and cut a piece the right length. Then we'll locate it on the mask in the proper place, roughly parallel, probably exactly parallel to the metal strip. So if you need to figure out what angle to put it at, that's what it is. And then we sew it on as many stitches as you feel comfortable with. Trim off the edges, trim off the fur. A pro would have done that in the other direction. But now it looks like we've got our mask with its strap on. All we need is the Velcro loop side on the end of the strap. So let's get that on there now. It can be whatever length you want to make it. A longer piece gives you more adjustability. So we'll just get that backing peeled off, and we'll get that stuck onto our strap. It's easier if you have fingernails. There, that's stuck on, and our mask is now effectively complete. Let's try it on. Looks good and tight. Let's see how it works. And that's about it for today. Good luck, and I hope this does you some good.